Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Sissy. Thanks for joining us today to talk about our new children's book, The Superpower
Oh,
Sisterhood.
Superpower Sisterhood. Yeah, we're so happy to be with y'all wherever you are. This is I think, cool thing about the pandemic is that we can all be together even when we're apart. And we're so thrilled that you all are spending your afternoon with us. Barbara and I have had a partnership since really the day we were born.
We are lucky in that we were born with a twin. So we've had someone to walk through life with at every stage of our life, which has been really great since we've had both a totally normal life growing up in Texas, also set in very extraordinary circumstances, given the role that our grandfather was playing when we were born and that our dad played when we were older. And because of that, we've always known how lucky we were to have a sister and to have a partner. And therefore, as authors, we have devoted, as we've written together, all three of our books, including our new one that will come out next week, to the power of sisterhood.
Yeah, I think we we always say the best gift that we ever had was that we had each other, because having a twin is kind of a unique situation because we're the exact same age. So therefore there wasn't one of us that thought something was uncool. We both, all of our frames of reference were the same. All of the things we loved were the same. And all of the emotions that we were feeling in normal but also extraordinary times in our lives were similar. Like when we had to walk and we were 18 into our dad's inauguration. I think it was like one of the very first times we really wore high heels, Barbara. And
It was the first time.
we
We
started
should
with
have practiced.
we should have practiced. We also didn't start with I guess we had started with a clunky mule before, but these were like stilettos, which are not easy to walk in. And we really could not walk, but we had a sister to hold our hand and make us feel safe, even when we were sort of humiliated.
Or nervous, maybe.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of the White House, we are actually joined, I see in the chat, by Bob from the White House that worked in the flower shop. Thank you for
Wow.
everyone who's putting sweet messages into the chat. That makes us feel great. But we are joined by someone that we got to know through our years in the White House. And so one thing that was really interesting, but also really cool about our experience is when our grandfather became president, we were 7. So we didn't actually know what. I thought everyone's grandfather was president. Our grandfather was so humble that I thought that if you were a grandfather in the United States, you became president. And we went to his inauguration in Washington, D.C., and it was just unbelievable at any age to watch history, but especially when you're 7 to see the parade and the balloons and everything. And we went into the White House and we went there while during the inaugural parade, they're moving the former president out and the new president in. And we were met on the steps by the White House florist, a woman named Nancy, who invited us in and took us down to the flower shop and asked if we wanted to make bouquets for our grandparents' bedside, which we were very into crafting. We were little baby DIYers, so
Yeah,
we
we've
loved
realized
it.
since that crafting in the 80s and 90s is really the birth of DIY. Like
Yes,
DIY
we were
took over
early
the term
DIY.
crafting, but crafting was DIYing, right, Sissy?
Yes. So we were DIYers before it was called DIY, and we made flowers for our grandparents' bedside. And then what's amazing is that most of the people that work at the White House continue working there for years. So when we went back, when our dad became president, Nancy was still the florist. She worked with Bob, and Nancy did the flowers for my sister's wedding. So it is our experience with our parents in DC and our grandparents was so rewarding because we got to see the same people when we were little girls. And then when we weren't that much older, but we were 18 onwards. And it just made it an incredibly rewarding experience, which goes back to the power of sisterhood that we got to experience this together, experience the normalcy of our life, but also the extraordinary opportunities to travel with our parents and meet people um, that are everyday Americans, and then incredibly inspiring people that were working in government and travel across the country and the world with our parents.
Mm-hmm. And this book is really based off of our first book, our first children's book, Sisters First. And when we went on that book tour, people would stop and be like, wow, you're so lucky. I don't have a sister. I wish I had a sister like you who made me feel brave. And what we realized is that sisterhood looks like a million different things. Sisterhood is also those friends, or cousins or family members that make us feel brave. It's whoever in our life. It's like with sisterhood is even too broad in some ways. It's also brotherhood. It's just like what it looks like to have somebody that lifts you up. And we had that in each other, but we also had that in others, and we still have that in others. And so this book, The Superpower Sisterhood, is based off of those conversations that we had with people where people said, gosh, I wish I had a sister. And what we said to them was, you have that colleague who makes you feel so brave. You have that colleague who stands up for you and gives you advice. And I think the Genesis too is very much off of our mom's life.
Yes. So
We're trying to talk in unison, be twins, and I'm trying to stop and be like, Barbara will pick up here, but this is completely off the cuff and we're not in the same place. So it's kind of tricky, but Barbara, go ahead.
we do have that twin language. So in our book is actually based on an only child named Emma. And she is the only kid on the block on her street. It's called Humble Street, which was named actually after the street where my mom's parents, our grandparents, Grammy and Pa, lived in Midland, Texas. We wanted to name the street after their street, and also the idea that humility and humbleness is something that we aspire to have and to be. But anyway, Emma is the only kid on the block. And then all of a sudden, two sets of sisters move onto the block, and she is indoctrinated into this sisterhood with them. She's an honorary sister, and they start a club on the block. And we based this off of our mom, who was also an only child, and she grew up desperately wanting siblings. And yet she had built a sisterhood for herself with her best friends from Midland, Texas, that are still her best friends, that we grew up with as our aunties in many ways. And so Emma is based on our mom. And the thing that we loved exploring in this book is each of these girls, they have powers, and they're normal powers. One is good at math, one is great at dancing, one is great at writing, and their usual skills and powers. But all of a sudden in their sisterhood, they become superpowers because the other girls on the block see them for the incredible skills that they are, and they take their block by storm. I would say I won't tell you everything so that you get to read the book and know what happens. But each of them, them collectively makes each other more brave and more powerful together. And that is how we think of sisterhood, whether it's our blood sister, like my sister, or a mom's best friends who are her sisters.
Yeah. And I think, I loved this article I read. I just read something where somebody said, you want to teach your kids that they are holding a flame in their hands, and that when they want to be around friends who keep that flame alive, that don't say, oh, that's math, that's stupid. You want to have friends that are like, math, you're so good at math. And I see that in my girls, and I'm never prouder. I mean, I'm sure we can all think of experiences. Like I just asked Mila about her friend Vale, and she said Vale was spectacular. And I think that's what we want. And that's what this group of girls give each other. And we don't want to give too much away, but I am going to read their kind of cheer.
Their oath.
Their
They have
oath.
an oath that they take to join the sisterhood club on their block.
And what I love about it is that not only do they have these superpowers, but they want to use their superpowers to do incredible good things. And so they write this down. Can you see? It's hard to tell. It's hard to go which way. It's strange how it's like a mirror. Barbara can hold it up. But this is what they said. To record our magic, Liliani brought her grandmother's old diary to our shed. I turned the crackly, empty pages and wrote, with these powers, we will do good deeds, nurture nature, uplift others, and above all else, support our sister power. Sissy Power Unite.
Unite.
And that actually, Sissy Power Unite, embarrassingly, but also just honestly, was something that Barbara and I sometimes chant, even though we're in our late 30s or early 40s. Right, Cece.
40. We're just at 40. But I see Michelle wrote in the chat that sisters don't have to be our bio family members. Her sisters who love and support her, we say sisters from our hearts. And that's what these sisters on Humble Street are.
Oh, that's Barbara's wanting to weep. That is a beautiful, well, that is a beautiful thing, sisters from our hearts. And so after the book tour, we got to writing this because we think
our
that,
last book tour for sisters.
yeah, after our last book tour, we started writing this book right away because to us, what the power of sisterhood looks like can be a million different things. And I think even in our next book, it'll probably be even more broad, because what sisterhood is really just love, and showing that love. And that's what Bob did for us, who is on somewhere, I think probably in Florida. I hope you're still in Florida, Bob. And what Nancy, as Barbara mentioned, Nancy had us make these flower arrangement. She took us in under her wings, and then she got to do the flowers, or I was lucky enough to get what I'm trying to say it to get her to do the flowers for our wedding, which was such a privilege. She showed us that love and that sisterhood, and we were just little sissies who were kind of nervous and didn't know, had barely been out of Texas, to where we were shocked by the beauty of Washington, and also slightly nervous.
Absolutely. I see some people asked where they can get the book. Well, the book comes out next week. But the thing that's so cool about what we're doing is you can get a signed copy if you go to premiercollectibles.com/sisterhood. And on that note, I know a number of those that have been joining us have submitted questions. You can still submit questions. And we are excited to do a co-moderated chat based on the questions y'all submitted.
Yeah, so keep sending them in. Keep sending them.
Keep sending them. And just want to say, Jenna and Barbara, there's a lot of love coming in from the chat from all over. So you are very beloved, as you might know, from all over the country. And there's so many people here, maybe even internationally, which is great. So our first question is from Thomas. What was it like to grow up as teenagers while your father was president?
Great question, Thomas. It was a lot of things.
I like how we both took a deep breath.
It was strange. Our dad became president when we were 18, and we had both gone to college then. So we didn't actually live in the White House. A lot of people think that we did, but we got to spend a lot of time in the White House. But it was certainly a strange experience. You're trying to navigate your own identity in college then, and then there, others know of you, but they may not know you yet. But I'd say we luckily had each other to navigate that. And what was incredible is that we realized what a privilege it is. We got so much exposure, especially when you're 18 to 24 are the years that our parents were in DC. Our parents let us travel with them whenever we could, as long as we obviously did our schoolwork, or when we were working, we did our obligations for work. We got to travel around the country with them. We got to travel around the world with them. I saw someone on here from Colombia. I got to go to Colombia with my parents, and that type of exposure to the world and to our culture and to other cultures and to people that are showing up every day trying to make the world better is something that's so lucky. So I would say that was by far the best part of having a dad who was president when we were teenagers.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is, when our dad told us he was going to run, and Barbara and I have since done a public apology, so don't worry. But when he told us he was going to run, we both burst into tears in unison, because that's what twins can do. We told him he was going to ruin our lives. I think we told him he was going to lose, probably. And then, because I think our fear was that we couldn't have a normal college experience. We so wanted to be normal college students. And we really had such a normal childhood up to this point, even though our grandpa was president. We went to public schools. We went to a public high school. We drove ourselves to school every day. We shared a car, which I most of the time would steal from Barbara to go to cross country. And I don't know how she got there. Would Matthew come pick you up? But anyway, I think the point is that we quickly realized the privilege of living history, as Barbara said. But the other thing that I'm just so thankful for is that our parents allowed us to be us. There's no guidebook to being first daughter. Sorry. there's no perfect way to be. And we made mistakes, we made public mistakes. And I think now I realize how brave that is, that our parents allowed us to fail. Because kids shouldn't feel pressure to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. And we didn't feel that pressure, obviously. Some of you may remember when we ordered margaritas at Chewy's. That was stupid. But I think the point is, we're so appreciative of both of our parents for allowing us that grace to make mistakes.
So true, so true. So their next question is from Kim, and this is, how often do you two talk or text each other?
Well, we text each other probably every day. We text all day, every day. We talk
a little less, but once a week,
less.
probably.
Yeah, we talk on the phone once a week,
more
but
than
we're
that.
always sort of in communication.
Yeah, I think text is sort of taken, our generation, it's a very sad thing, because like when we would come home and when we were little, our mom would always be on the phone, like remember when people
She was
talk
always
on the phone?
to her friends on the phone.
They love to talk. I like to talk, but I'm not spending that much time talking on the telephone. I don't know about y'all. I mean,
well, I have, since I had a baby 6 months ago, Cora Georgia, and I have started FaceTiming a lot more, particularly my sissy, so that she can see how Cora Georgia is growing, but also so Cora Georgia can see her cousins, Mila and Poppy and Hal. Or I can watch them sing Cora Georgia, since I'm not sure Cora Georgia.
But also we live so close to each other, so we have to start getting in together more often so that they can. I think Barbara was a little nervous by our Thanksgiving because Mila and Puppy, if they could have, would have eaten Cora Georgia. They were just like on top of her, kissing her, massaging her, acting like she was a real life doll.
Well, she was their baby doll, and luckily that means Cora's just a really chill baby, because she's gotten to be held by all of her cousins and dragged around, and she feels included.
And Hal calls his baby Cora. He calls every baby Cora. He's like, baby Cora.
And he has a lot of dolls that he named baby Cora. And Cora Georgia feels honored by that.
He also, yes, his baby doll.
Mr. Bobby's on, sissy.
Hi, Mr. Bobby.
Thanks for everyone putting in comments in the chat. It makes us feel great, and we're seeing so many friends on here. Mr. Bobby was the principal when my sister was a teacher in DC.
Yeah, he was the dean of students. He's an incredible educator. I've actually done a story on him. I'm sure you can Google it, on the Today Show, because he was such a mentor to me, but also an incredible educator to so many in the DC area. And he was like my first boss, but he is more than that. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being. I love you, Mr. Bobby. I can't see the comments, so keep them coming, sissy, thank you.
Yeah, well, and we've got another question from Victoria in Florida, which is, what inspired you both to write this book right now at this time in your lives?
Well, we kind of answered that, and that was just that the book tour really did. I mean, I think whenever you do an experience like that where you're talking about one subject, which was sisterhood, with Sisters First, and you're hearing, it's like you're not only talking, you're listening to what people have to say back. Our conversations were very heavily focused on what sisterhood looks like, and I think, like Barbara was saying the other day, it's so true. So many people were like, I don't have a blood sister, but meet my sister Mary, she's my best friend, or meet my colleague. And I think that tour really inspired us to think about Sisters First is about literal sisters, and that gift of what that looks like, what Barbara and I have. But we realized that what sisterhood is such a broader thing. And I think it was the conversations we had on the book tour. Another question?
Yeah, that's lovely. So Lindsay from Ohio wants to know, what's the main theme or takeaway that you would love your readers to gain? And I think you can answer this for multiple books of yours, actually, too, because you also have Sisters First and Sisters First, the adult version. So,
Well, I think our whole, we know how lucky we are to have each other, to have a sister that has our back and that sees us for enough, and that sees us as, fallible and human, and loves us for who we are. And we have that in each other and from each other, but we also have that from our friends. And so we I guess the message that we want people to take is that regardless of what form your sisters are, whether they're your best friends or your blood sister, or if you're a little kid reading this book, that life is so much better when we can see the best in everyone and have their back and make sure that they um, know that we're there for them, and that is really what makes life so beautiful, because then you have all these other people walking alongside of you. And I guess back to the question of why now, we both have daughters now, but we have been so aware of how lucky we are to have each other. And this is, that was never lost on us, even as kids. Even when we got into art, we might have had 2 rocky years when we were 13 and 14, like every girl seems to have. But it was never lost on us how lucky we were to have each other. And I think that that's really broadly the message that we want to remind everyone, is to look for their sisters and support those that are their sisters, whether they're their colleague or their friend. I saw someone in the chat who is a Judy Blume lover, and she asked what were some of our favorite books growing up. And I just wanted to say, Judy
what
Blume,
an icon.
Well, I've gotten to interview Judy Blume recently, Barbara. I don't know if you know that.
I knew that.
Judy Blume is somebody that we just adore, but that's such a good question. Let's talk about our favorite books. That's so much fun. I think, well, first of all, Summer Sisters. Talk about sisterhood, sissy. We got to find out, we got to reread Summer Sisters this summer. That was a Judy
By the way,
Blume.
Summer Sisters is an adult Judy Blume book. So if you're listening and you think,
Yeah.
oh, that's going to be like a kid's Judy Blume book,
No, don't read it to your
Maybe not.
child.
don't read
But
it.
I mean, actually, I don't remember details. Would it be
I think
risque
it's
to
like-
read to a child?
Yes. It's risque to read to a child, but it's really a fun book. It's about 2 friends that are like sisters in the summer. And I think like Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard, they live on an island.
Sissy, all
but
I know
other
is
books
we've got
that-
to add that to our sisterhood collection. Summer Sisters.
we do.
You need Summer Sisters behind you in the far left corner.
And other books that we loved when we were little that really inspired us when we were little, we loved the Babysitters Club series. And so much so that we lived in Dallas. We lived on a street called Northwood, and we made a babysitters club with our neighbors. And we tried to make a clubhouse in one of their backyards. And we also babysat, but we were
babies.
ourselves.
Yeah, we were 8. This was the 80s and the 90s when you were allowed to babysit when you were 8 or 9. But okay, so yes, the Babysitters Club. And I actually, when I interviewed Anne and Martin, I wept. It was so embarrassing. I'm like, your books have meant so much to me. She's like, I've heard that from every other child of the 80s and 90s. But we also loved mysteries when we were little. And the book that just holds up the test of time, Sissy, I can't wait for you to read it to Cora. And y'all all know this, of course, is Charlotte's Web. I read it to Mila and Poppy. And when I read it to Mila Henry and my husband and her dad came home from work, and we were both like, I mean, he thought something really bad had happened. We were like, both of us were like in each other's arms, just weeping, because it's such a beautiful book. But it's also, reread it if you haven't, for fun. The writing is just spectacular.
And we were so lucky. I mean, I love you talking about you reading to Mila. We read so much with our mom. Our mom loved reading so much that she was a librarian. She just wanted to spend her days around books. And we read so much with her. And then also our grandmother, who I'm named after, Barbara, loved reading. Literacy was incredibly important to her. And I remember in the summer, we would go spend the summers with our grandparents in Maine, and we had to do our summer reading, us and all of our cousins, and we would all get in bed at night, and we had to be reading our summer reading, and we would be lying, in different beds, we would share the attic with our other cousins, so we could all have summer parties and fall asleep reading.
So sweet. Love that. Well, that is a good segue to, what is your favorite thing to do as sisters? Do you have a favorite activity or memory of something you used to love to do together?
Well, when we were little, we were really into Barbies. Jenna had a wild imagination, which
I loved playing Barbies to the point where my mom, I think, was worried about me. But then she read that Toni Morrison loved to play dolls. And so she was like, it just pacified her. She's like, well, maybe she'll be a writer, because
Well,
that's really
only
just
worried because
story.
Jenna would have like the storylines were very wild that we would enact, like very soap opera-y. This really shows that we were girls of the 90s. We would argue over who could name their kin Brad or Chad. Those were the
So
names
we
we
liked Barbies as children. I think we like exploring. I mean, we haven't gotten to do that much because of the pandemic, but I dream of going on a sissy yaya trip. That's another book you need to add to your bookshelf. And also the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants also needs to
Totally
be added.
that
But
needs to be.
yeah, I'm gonna get you a bunch. I'm gonna send you a bunch of sisters books just to get your Zoom shot very sister heavy. But we love to read now. I send Barbara books, and she'll send me books that she loves, and we like if certain trips that we've taken, we'll both read the same book, which is really fun to do. I recommend that. So we haven't got into travel recently just because of the pandemic, and then Barbara had a baby. But hopefully soon we will get to do that again.
That sounds great. But Jenna, you have your book club on TV and you have your sister book club. You're just making book clubs with all your family members.
My Read with Jenna book club is very much informed, and Barbara is one of my main readers. I love to read. I've started Read with Jenna 3 years ago, and the mission is really to at the Today Show, and the mission is really to highlight diverse and debut authors. And it's been so much fun. Almost every book has gone on to be New York Times bestsellers. The conversations that we have around Read with Jenna is so awesome. The group of readers is Barbara. They do this incredible thing. I don't know if I've ever told you this, where it's called Sharing Saturday. And if they've read one of the Read with Jenna books, they put it in the mail and they send it to somebody else to read it.
Fun.
So the community, I bet there's some Read with Jenna, and Barbara, see if you can see it in the comments. I bet there's some awesome Read with Jenna readers that are on right now. And so thank you for reading with us. But it's so much fun. And we're going into our 3rd year, which is crazy, but it's been such a gift. And I send Barbara a ton of books. I just sent her a mystery that we would choose for the beginning. Or you're deep into it already?
Yeah, but we can't discuss it on here, obviously. But I see a woman named Sandy who actually is living out our dream. She has a sister who is 11 years younger. And she's recently widowed, but her sister and her husband moved into the same retirement community, and now they're neighbors, which is...
That's what we want to do.
We used to live 4 blocks from each other, and which was really fun. Sandy, to live that close to our sissy. And so I would get to go over all the time after. I mean, I would just pop by after work to see my sister, which was very joyful. Thank you for sharing the comment.
Yeah, that's your dream.
Oh, I hope you can do it. That sounds wonderful. So you talked about the White House and how maybe it was stressful growing up there sometimes, but what's y'all's favorite memory from growing up in the White House?
Well, one that comes to mind, when our grandfather was president, and then when our dad was president, everyone in our family, my dad has a lot of siblings and we have a lot of cousins, and we would all come for the holidays, and everyone would basically come, and it would be a huge slumber party. And so when we were little and we would go to DC from 1st grade to 4th grade, the White House would be totally decorated with, it smelled like Christmas trees everywhere. It was so magical and beautiful. And then we would get to bunk up with our cousins, and we were from Texas, so we weren't that used to snow. It was often snowing. It was exactly what you would dream a picture of a Christmas would be. And so those are some of my favorite memories of just getting to play with our cousins and be close to our grandparents for the holidays.
And I think also, Barbara mentioned this some, but our parents were super generous in allowing us to travel all over the world. And we were 19 and 20 years old. So traveling to Africa, for example, both of us got to go. And for the unveiling of PEPFAR, I was in Rwanda for the 10-year anniversary of the genocide, and going on experiences like that aren't like trips, they're journeys, or you get to meet real people who are experiencing their lives, and also those that are wanting to make change. Doing that particularly at 18, 19, 20 years old, or up to 25, really changes the framework of your life. Barbara went on to start a global health non-for-profit, and I'm sure in many ways that was inspired by those trips.
Absolutely.
So that's great. You just mentioned your job, Barbara. Jenna and Barbara, what are your favorite parts of your day jobs? I know you're writers, but so to speak, what's your favorite part of hosting the Today Show, and what is your favorite part, Barbara, of the nonprofit that you have started?
Well, I'll go first, Sissy, since you sort of
Mhm.
introduced it. I
Mhm.
founded an organization called Global Health Corps with some other co-founders about 13 years ago. And what we do every day is we recruit young leaders from around the world to join us for a year, and they serve every single day in communities solving global health issues. And then throughout the year that they're with us, they go through a curriculum focused on policy change and advocacy and entrepreneurship so that they can have the skills they need throughout their lives to be global health problem solvers. And we've gotten to where everyone's 30 and under. It's very generation specific, trying to grab great talent and shape young people's careers. We've gotten to work with thousands of young leaders who are changing the world, and especially obviously with everything that happened with COVID over the past 2 years. We're excited to keep bringing great, creative, young talent to a field that will keep needing solutions.
I'm so proud of her. She's done incredible work. And my favorite part of the Today Show is everything. I mean, I love going to work. I wake up and I'm excited. And I think that that's a gift. I feel like my work in many ways is also my purpose. It's really fun to go and to entertain. And I used to kind of belittle myself, like when Barbara and I were out on book tour and she would talk about her work and I'd be like, and I'm just sitting next to Hoda drinking wine or whatever. We don't do that anymore, which I'm glad about. But we didn't really actually ever drink the wine. Don't tell, don't tell, but it was sort of just a prop. And then it's like, well, if you're not drinking it, why is it there? But anyway, I would belittle myself, and since the pandemic and I've gotten to travel and see people and meet people, I've stopped doing that because I've heard from people that watch the show that said, you were my lifeline during a really hard time, or when I was recovering from having a baby, you and Hoda made me laugh every day, or I had cancer and you helped me get through radiation. And so I don't do it anymore because I know it's a privilege and also a responsibility.
Amazing. So you're both also mothers and have these beautiful families. What is your favorite part of motherhood, and what do you like to do with your family?
Well, I am a new mother. My daughter is 6 months old. Her name is Cora Georgia, as I mentioned before. And everything, motherhood has been better than I thought it would be. I just didn't even know how great it would be. It's so much fun to see those little tiny miracles. She turned 6 months last weekend and her two bottom teeth popped up, and that was totally exciting. But she had a wild entrance into this world. I thought I was going to have my baby in New York, which is where I live. And my husband and I were in Maine for the weekend. And in the middle of the night, 6 weeks earlier than my due date, my water broke. And all of a sudden, we were Googling the closest hospital to us. We had no plan. It never occurred to me that she could be born somewhere else. So we Googled the closest hospital, which was about an hour away, and luckily jumped in the car because Cora Georgia was ready to get into this world. And she arrived pretty quickly thereafter. And she had to be in the NICU for the first almost 4 weeks of her life. And what was so wild about this is that right after I delivered her, they took her to the NICU to put her on oxygen and give her the support that she needed to get healthy. And I went to visit her, and on the wall, I realized that it was the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital, named after our grandmother, which I didn't know. And it all just felt very divine and peaceful to be in Maine in a hospital that our grandmother had cared about so much, and to get to spend time with my baby. And I know we have some Mainers on. I see Cindy from Maine who's joining us right now. And what was great is because I was so unprepared, not thinking that she was going to come then. My sister, of course, jumped on a plane right away and came to Maine, and both got to visit me in the hospital and meet Cora Georgia on her second day in the world. But she also went to Target and bought us everything we needed. We didn't have diapers. We didn't have a car seat to bring her home from the hospital, and we had nothing. And so luckily my sister stepped up to be the superpower sister in that
Yeah,
moment.
of course. I couldn't wait. Couldn't wait to do that. I mean, everything is so much fun. It's so wild. We have 3 kids now. Baby Hal is 2. he's potty trained, which is a big deal because we don't have to order diapers anymore. So we're out of diapers. And he like also just doesn't understand the potty training thing. So there's a lot of sort of like showing, strangers on the street his Elmo underwear and things like that. He's like, he's very proud of himself, which he should be. Sorry.
Bless you.
And so he's constantly bragging about the fact that he goes pee-pee on the potty, and poo-poo on the potty. He actually, the other thing that this might be too much information, but since we're talking into the ethos, he wakes up every morning and he reads a book to go to the bathroom on the potty, which I just love. He's like an 8-year-old man reading the paper. But I think parenthood is so much fun. It's fun to be joyful, which kids are by nature. Poppy and Mila are hilarious and fun. And if we allow ourselves, we can get back to that and be kids with them. And that's what we try to do. We try to have dance parties and play outside and do all the things that Barbara and I loved as kids.
That's so wonderful. So you two have such a great rapport, and it's so easy communicating with you right now, but was it always like this, or during your teen years? How was it growing up, and what's your relationship like now as opposed to how it was when you were younger?
Well, I think one thing that was really great that our parents did is they let us each be our individual selves, even though we were twins. It's interesting when you're a twin, people expect you to be either identical or the exact opposite of each other.
Yeah.
Which weren't that, or we weren't one or the other. But we were each good at different things. And our parents let us pursue those things, which I know made more work for them. So we did different sports. I did dance. Jenna was a singer. And we just got to pursue the things we were interested in that made us different. And that was celebrated, which was great. To your question, we did have sort of a rocky 2 years where we fought a lot in middle school.
Mm-hmm. Like every other middle schooler. But also the thing is, I can remember, and I wonder if this is true with you too, Barbara, like getting into a big fight and then like hugging like very hard,
Yes.
like even fought. And there were moments probably when we fought in elementary too, not as much, but like even then we could get into an argument and 2 seconds later I'd be like squeezing her as tight as I could, which is the way that I should love. Not very peaceful, but I loved her. And now we're very, very close. I mean, I think we've always been really close. I think, parents can worry if their kids fight, but as long as there's like, they're laughing too, as long as there's the basis of love and respect and kindness, not always, but somewhere in there, like my kids are home because they're sick and they were kind of fighting, but then they were also like laughing. And I'm like, oh, see, they love each other. It's just a moment,
Also, our fights were, I think, maybe about like
clothes,
borrowing each
or
other's
Barbies.
clothes.
Yeah.
So they were very minor. And then the other thing was we shared a room for a lot of our childhood, and then we're very near each other in our rooms till we moved out for college. So our fights couldn't last long because then we'd be like, oh, what are you up to now? Do you want to hang out?
Yes, exactly.
Too funny. So this question is from Bonnie. Did either of you ever join Girl Scouts as a kid or any kind of other clubs like that?
We
wanted to be Girl
Scouts.
We don't know why we didn't join. We wanted to be in Girl Scouts. I feel like our mom didn't let us, and it's not, she loves the Girl Scouts. So it's not.
She was a Girl Scout, and our mom's mom, actually, our grandmother, Jenna. So we're each named after our grandmothers. So I'm named after my dad's mom, and Jenna's named Jenna Welch after our mom's mom. But my mom was a Girl Scout, and our grandmother, Jenna, she lived in Midland, Texas. She lived in West Texas, which is the desert. And she went to community college till she couldn't drive anymore. She was constantly learning until she was in her 80s. But one thing that she became was a great bird watcher, because when she was my mom's Girl Scout leader, I guess you had to get a badge on ornithology. And so our grandmother, later in life, that was one of her great hobbies that she learned through being my mom's Girl Scout mom.
It's awesome.
Mom's Girl Scout, mom's Girl Scout leader. Yeah, and my our grandmother Barbara was also my dad's Boy Scout leader, and she said that that's when her hair started to go white. But we love the Girl Scouts. And my husband was an Eagle Scout, so we have Boys and Girl Scouts admiration coming everywhere. And we love the cookies too. The cookies are very important to us.
I was gonna say maybe they were just trying to spare you the pressure of meeting that cookie quota.
We could have met it. We would have met it. We would have eaten it ourselves.
You could have blown it out of the water.
The Thin Mints. Our next question
is from
the tagalongs.
Oh, sorry. What was that?
The tagalongs.
From your
Shortbread.
hometown of your home state of Texas, who has a great question, which is, how did both of you meet your spouses? Can you share with us a little bit of your love stories?
We sure can. Sissy, do you want to go first?
Sure. I met Henry a long time ago when I was a child with Barbara, who was also a child. And we decided to work for...
We were like 22, just for anyone that...
21, and that is children. September of 2004. Weren't we 20? Don't you graduate college when you're 21?
When you're 22, but close.
1 year off. But 22 is young, Barbara. That's all
no, but I
saying.
just didn't want anyone listening to think you were actually a child.
Okay.
Keep going. Continue on.
Okay. So Barbara and I both decided to work for our dad's campaign. We were not interested in politics necessarily, but we loved him and we wanted to support him. So we worked for him in 2004, and Henry walked in to the office where we were sitting, and I was like, oh, of course the only cute guy has a girlfriend. He walked in with his girlfriend, but I got rid of her quickly after that. And now we're married and we have 3 children. We've been married for 14 years in May. So wow.
That's
how we met.
That's how they met. I met my husband. So Jenna and I wrote a book called Sisters First originally, but that was not the children's edition. I don't know what you call it. It wasn't an
It's a personal essays.
Book of personal essays. And
Barbara likes to call it the adult version.
I know that's not what it is. It makes it
a memoir.
A memoir.
Personal essays are a memoir.
Yes.
There's multiple things to call it.
And we were on book tour in Atlanta. Well, we went on to a lot of places on our book tour, but one of our stops was in Atlanta. And someone had set my husband and me up, and we'd never met before. He wasn't on social media, which is something that I really like, but I knew nothing about him. And we decided to meet for drinks before Jenna and I were going to a book tour event in Atlanta. And he met us at our hotel in the lobby, but I went up to 3 different people. I didn't know what he looked like. And then luckily this handsome guy walked in, and it was Craig. And Jenna was on our first date. And
he came and she said, do not invite him to our book tour event. This is, was in person before 2020. And it was like 1,000 people in a synagogue in Atlanta. She was like, do not invite him, and mainly women, because the book was Sisters First, and Emily Griffin, who's a fun kind of romance author, was our moderator. So she's like, whatever you do not invite him. Like, I'll see him again. And I'm like, do you want to come to our book event? Barbara's elbowing me. I'm like, ow.
Jenna didn't play it cool. She's like, ow, what? Why are you elbowing me?
No.
But then he came to our book event, and we were backstage, and Emily Giffen she wrote these books, Something Borrowed, Something Blue. They're very sort of romance, love focused. And she thought it was so funny that I was on a blind date at our book Q&A, and she found a bottle of champagne. I remember being so humiliated, and she made us toast each other to us getting engaged. So we have a picture from our first date toasting. And then we did our Q&A. And at the end, we're getting up to walk off the stage, and she says to the audience, it's about 1,000 women, and she says, wait, I forgot. Barbara's on a date with a handsome gentleman, and she tries to get them to turn the spotlight on him. And luckily, there was one other guy in the audience, and they turned the spotlight on that guy. And then we walked off the stage, and we went to the airport and got on a flight to go to Miami to go to the Miami Book Festival. But I stayed in touch with him, and then we got married.
That's the best. And proof that sometimes sisters know more than romance authors about dating.
True that. True that.
That's wonderful. All right, so we have 2 more quick questions, and then we're going to go into a sort of lightning round with 22 questions. So one is just from Anne, and Anne would like to know if either of you played sports when you were growing up, athletic or no?
We
We
did.
like exercise so much. My hand-eye coordination developed way late in life. Like I couldn't hold scissors correctly until like the 5th grade. It's like we
I
had
played
all
soccer, Jenna ran. I mean, we played sports, but we
but not
weren't
really.
great. I mean, we did. We played them, but we weren't great at them. We were very mediocre athletes. But now we love to exercise. It's like we developed later.
Yeah. No, so our
Athletically.
parents did not push us really in anything, which is fine. But I'm like, why didn't you make like I want to like make my kids play I wish they were like, you have to play a sport in the fall, and then we would have, and then maybe we'd be like
I
Serena
did
and
want to
Venus.
say, Tammy in the chat just said, Jenna, do you still sing?
Yeah. Or she asked me if I could. No, I don't. I'm not a great singer, Tammy. That's the other thing. Our mom and dad sort of lied to me and made me feel like I was an excellent singer.
Well, Jenna was very passionate about singing. So she took voice lessons from maybe 1st grade to 5th grade. And our mom, Jenna, was desperate to be an actress. And so our mom would take her to all these auditions for the different local theaters. So she would audition for Heidi and Les Miserables.
But I never made them. I never got the part. But anyway, I do. Evidently, J-Lo has a voice coach. Barbara, this is something I'm sharing with you as well, who claims they can make anybody sing. So I'm hoping to do a series for the Today Show where I actually learn to sing.
Okay, that'd be amazing because Tammy also just wrote, hit it, Toots.
I think the people want to see it.
Tell Tammy I love her. Tell Tammy I love her.
You can tell Tammy you love her right now. You're talking to her.
Tammy, I love that you just said hit it, Toots. And if I could, I would. I have a little bit of a scratchy throat. So I'm going to go get some throat coat tea and then I'll sing a little later.
It's all right. She'll watch it on the segment that you eventually do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and final question, bringing it back to reading. Greta would like to know if you either of you prefer Kindle or do you prefer holding a real book when you read?
Well,
we read every which way. I read every way
we can. I read on my iPad because I prior to the pandemic traveled for work all the time, so that way that was easier for me to have a lot of different books when I traveled. But it feels so good to hold a book in your hand.
I read. So here's how it works for me. I have like 7 galleys by my bed right now for a read with Jenna. I read hard copies as much as I possibly can. But when my husband's ready to go to bed and I'm not, then I switch to the same book that I'm reading in hard copy over to my iPad if I have my iPad and it's charged. If the iPad isn't charged, then I just read right on my phone in the iBook section. In the sun, I prefer a real book because it's hard to read an iPad in the sun. Like if I'm on vacation, which doesn't happen very much, but that's how it is. At work, I usually read on my phone because I'm already at work. But I also usually travel with a galley in my purse at all times. That's it.
Great. Love it. All right. Well, we're going to switch now into the lightning round questions if you're ready. So these will just be rapid fire. You both can just answer as soon as you hear, and we'll go for it. This one, you have the same answer. Number 1, where were you born?
Midland, Midland, Texas, but we actually were born in Dallas, Texas, because there was no NICU.
We were living
in Midland, but there was no NICU unit. So we were born in Dallas, but we lived in Midland.
Our mom went to Dallas to have us because we were twins and they knew we were coming early and that we would need NICU support.
Oh, all right. And who would you want to play you in a movie? These are going to be different.
Kate Blanchett.
Ooh, good one.
I'm like, my person would have to be kind of funny. So like Amy Schumer, probably.
Yeah. Love Amy Schumer.
I wasn't expecting that one. That's great. What was your first job?
I worked in a clothing store. Well, I was a babysitter, as we mentioned that we babysat when we were babies. But in high school, I worked at a clothing store called Melange.
And I was a camp counselor at Camp Longhorn in Texas.
Love it. What chore do you hate doing?
Oh, I love all chores.
We like to clean.
I
right.
actually like
Jenna
clean
likes to clean
more.
more than I do, but I've gotten
Yeah,
very
I have a
into
cleaning addiction, but I think Barbara's sort of like being around me. It's kind of, she's got the vapors and she likes, I don't know if that's the proper word of the vapors, but I like to vacuum. I like to spray stuff.
I don't like taking the trash out. I will get the trash ready, but my husband has to take it out of the house.
Well, yeah,
I
he
hear
I
needs to
love
be-
recycling.
that- Oh, you like recycling, but you don't like taking the trash out?
Well, I like sorting everything, and we've started my neighborhood now composts. I love getting everything sorted, but he has to physically take it out.
Where do you take the what do you put the compost in?
In a special compost trash can, and they pick it up with the trash.
I love that. Keeping things green. All right. What's your biggest fear?
Snakes.
Spiders, like big, huge tarantulas, and kind of death too. But that's okay. We'll get
I'm not
there.
scared of death. Growing up,
Well, I'm gonna go to
scared of
therapy.
snakes.
I'm gonna go to therapy. It's fine.
Next children's book about facing your fears. There'll be a spread on snakes and a spread on spiders.
I can't face them enough to even write about them.
No, me neither.
Fair enough. Who makes you laugh the most?
My sissy.
I'm like, who makes me laugh the most?
Yourself,
Amy Schumer.
baby.
No.
No, myself. I'm very funny. Nobody's as funny as me. JK.
True.
And dad makes you
Poppy. Dad and Puppy. My daughter Puppy is hysterical. We actually call her Baby Amy Schumer because she is very physical comedy. She's very, very funny. She wants to be a comedian when she grows up.
That's so great. What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Well, I like having pineapple in my fridge or tomatoes.
Wow, that's like such a gourmet answer. I was gonna say like almond milk, which also sounds gourmet. I don't like kids' food. I mean, peppers, cucumbers, because that's what my children eat every day for snack. Kids, I have to have food to feed my children. Milk, cereal, that kind of stuff.
Great. And what is your favorite school subject, or was your favorite school subject?
English.
Oh my gosh, Tammy just wrote butter. I love you, Tammy. You're coming with the hits.
Tammy, you're
Pure
right.
butter,
We
butter,
love
butter,
butter.
butter.
Tammy, we love butter. One time Barbara ate a bite out of the butter. She loves it so much.
It was amazing, like a popsicle. Growing up, my favorite subject was math when I was younger. I loved math.
I love Tammy. Do we ever get to meet Tammy? She's a bomb.
Tammy,
Okay, where does
get
Tammy
some
live?
tickets to their tour stops.
Where does
Go.
Tammy live, Barbara?
I don't know. Tammy, will you write in the chat where you live?
But go to superpowersisterhood.com, Tammy. You might be able to make one of the events.
Yes.
So who is the most interesting person you both met recently?
This wasn't that recent, but Maya Angelou was the best, most incredible interview that I've ever given. And I was pregnant. So recent-ish. I was pregnant with Mila, who is turning 9 tomorrow. And so it was about 9 years ago. Dang, time goes really fast. And I got to meet her in her home in Harlem. And I was actually interviewing her about a memoir that she wrote called Mom, Me, and Mom. And it was just, she was interesting and incredible. And it was the best day of my life. I wept on her kitchen table all day long.
I would say, well, this is someone that I met a long time ago, but I knew for a lot of my life is Paul Farmer, who is a great global health leader who passed away a handful of weeks ago. And there's a book about him called Mountains Beyond Mountains, and I recommend everyone read it. It will inspire you and make you realize how much power we have to make every day better than the one before. Tammy's from Minnesota, by the way.
Oh, okay, good. We're not going to Minnesota, but we'll come visit you, Tammy, just to see you.
Yeah, next time. That's great. What is your biggest pet peeve?
I don't like when people say the word literally.
I actually don't either, and I've gotten into public fights with Savannah and Hoda about it. Sometimes Barbara would be on the text with Savannah and I, but then she got me a needle-pointed pillow, Savannah did, that said I literally can't. So I don't know what to do with it because I don't want to burn it. That's rude. That's not a big pet peeve. I don't like it. I think it's overused, but I don't really care. Um, uh, do I have pet peeves? I don't like
Well,
when people look at their phone too much when you're at a meal with them or something. Like I like to be present with the people I'm with.
I agree with that. And then when people are mean, that's a pet peeve.
Yeah, I don't like that.
So true. What is the last gift you gave?
Oh, well, I haven't given it, but it's a secret. But I got tickets to take Mila. I'm going to give it to her first thing tomorrow. So let's just pretend the timing's a little off, but I'm going to give her tickets to Olivia Rodrigo for her 9th birthday. It's going to be her first concert. And she's coming to New York. So we're going to go, the two of us, to listen to her favorite singer, Olivia Rodrigo, who wrote Driver's License and other hits, which I know every word to because all we do is listen to our children's music. That's a good gift, right?
My husband turned 40 last week. And so for his birthday, my gift was that we took a road trip outside of New York to Hudson Valley, which was fun, and took our babe and hiked and hung out.
Amazing. Okay, and last question. Where do you want to go that you've never been?
So many places. Where do we
Lots of
begin?
places. Japan.
New Zealand.
I'd like to go back. Oh, someone asked what the name of the book that I recommended. It's called Mountains Beyond Mountains. Japan, New Zealand. We went on a fabulous sister road trip to Utah and Zion National Park, which was beautiful. I'd like to
Maybe
go to
we
a
should
lot
do
of the
another
national
road.
parks.
Maybe we should do a national
Minnesota.
park.
We also want to go to Minnesota to see Tammy.
Yes, we need to go to Minnesota right away to meet our best friend Tammy, who says all the things we think are funny. Sissy, maybe we should do another national park trip this summer. I can't remember why we did that, but let's go.
It was so much fun.
It sure was.
That sounds great.
Thank you guys. We want to thank you all so much for being part of this conversation. Sorry, we finish each other's sentences. And thank you for supporting the Superpower Sisterhood. You can get it at premier.com/sisterhood, but also premiercollectibles.com. I can't read, but even though all I read. And we hope that you will look at sistersfirst.com and come see us on the road. We're going to be traveling in the next week, but it means so much to us that you'd spend this time with us here today.
Thanks for joining us today. Our book comes out next week. So this is our first book.
Yes, get it as an Easter. Get it as an Easter
event.
basket present. If there's any Easter bunnies out right now, put this in the Easter basket. Okay? I mean, you can just put a little thing that says this book is coming to you because it'll be right after Easter. So thank you guys.
Thanks for having us. We love hearing from you and talking to you. Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.